CBSSports.com has unraveled its top Power 5 coaches and their rankings for the upcoming 2022 season. Where does Josh Heupel rank and why it's just about right compared to popular belief? Plus, other coaches in the SEC, who's too high, who's too low, the biggest leaps from last year, all that and more, and an extra Twitter Tuesday question here on a Thursday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Thursday and welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, your team every single day, and I'm your host, Eric Kane. Of course, you can find this podcast on Twitter at _Kaner and at Locked On Vols. I've got the link in both of those bios where you can find this podcast literally wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music, Audacity, wherever, the Odyssey app, wherever you find it. Plus, it's on YouTube. You guys might be watching this right now on YouTube, so I do appreciate that. Today's episode is brought to you in part by BetOnline. It's got you covered this season for more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. So today we're going to take a tree model approach, which means I'm going to take a story or a ranking list from CBS Sports, and we're going to dissect every which way about it, and I'm going to tell you why, because I think it's important. Not only is this the off season and it is list season / combined with talking season, and it's just easy content, but it's also very interesting too. CBS Sports does a phenomenal job with off season content. I've brought a lot of their stuff here to the show and dissected, and we've talked about it, and that's what we're going to do again here today. So what CBSSports.com has done the past 2 days this week, I guess it was Monday and Tuesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, one or the other, I can't remember. They've taken the 65 Power 5 head coaches entering the 2022 season, and they have ranked them 1 through 65. And it's interesting because Josh Heupel is kind of about where you'd imagine he would be, and we'll get into that here in just a moment. But a whole lot to get into here on today's show, and it was a panel by CBSSports.com. Tom Fornelli does the write-up, but there's about 6-7 of these guys that kind of vote on him each and every year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. This is Locked On Vols. So when you look at CBSSports.com, and I'll link it in the description here for you so you can check it out for yourselves, they have Josh Heupel coming in at number 33 amongst the Power 5 head coaches. Number 33, so that's about middle of the road, right? And that's about right in my opinion. Think about it. You had year number 1, 7-5 regular season, 7-6 overall with the bowl loss to Purdue. You come in and you completely, 180 flip this offense, going from a slow, pounding ground, running offense to where you didn't take many chances throwing the football because you didn't have a quarterback, very limited in the personnel. Jeremy Pruitt had a distinct vision for his offense, wanted to go 1990s with good defense and good run game and good offensive line. Hey, that's my brand of football. I'm an old man. I get it too, but that's not the game of football anymore. You got to adapt, and Tennessee was just awful, point blank, just awful in the 3 years offensively under the Jeremy Pruitt regime. That was not Jim Chaney's offense, guys. I promise you, that was not what Jim Chaney does. Go back and look at any of the other, years and the highlight tapes of his time at Georgia's, his time at, at Purdue, his time elsewhere. He's done a lot. That was not Jim Chaney's offense, or at least that's not what Jim Chaney does when the restrictor plates are pulled off him, if that makes sense. But then comes in Josh Heupel. You spread it out. You're running gun. You're going fast. You're running almost 3 plays per minute, all that type of stuff. You found your quarterback, Hendon Hooker. It took you till week 2 or week 3 of the season. You found him, and the offense did a complete 180, and it's been exciting and a brand of football, and that's why Tennessee won a lot of games. That's why Tennessee was in a lot of games. But still, with respect, Tennessee didn't beat anybody, right? You lost to your 3 main rivals, Florida, Georgia, Alabama. You lost 2 games in which you really could have won, to be completely honest with you, in Ole Miss and Pittsburgh. And if you would have won those 2 games, look how much of a difference that'd be. That'd be 9-win regular season, right? And again, that wasn't the expectation. The expectation for a lot of national plaudits were 4 wins. I said Tennessee would crawl to 6 wins this past year, and they ended up with 7 in the regular season. So still a good season in year number 1. I'm not trying to hate on Tennessee. But in order for Josh Heupel to move up from 33rd, which is where he is right now in this ranking, into the top 25 potentially, he would have needed to knock off one of his 3 rivals or win a couple of those toss-up games, 1 or 2 of those toss-up games, and being Pittsburgh and it being obviously Ole Miss. Now, coming into the season, Missouri was a toss-up game. Kentucky was a toss-up game. Florida was a toss-up game. Pittsburgh was a toss-up game. And Tennessee took care of some of those teams. But in the end, or took care of Missouri and Kentucky, because Missouri didn't turn out to be anything this year, and Kentucky was a good team, but Tennessee was able to handle business and went on the road at Kruger Field, holding on to win, I might add. But Josh Heupel at number 33, that is about right in my opinion. Now, let's look at the rest of 26 through 65, shall we? They did this in spurts. The 26 through 65 came out on Tuesday. The top 25 came out on Wednesday. And we're starting with this bunch because that's where Josh Heupel is. At 26, you got Mike Leach, and we'll continue on. Pat Narduzzi's at 27. Chip Kelly's at 28. David Shaw of Stanford's at 29. Jeff Brom of Purdue is at 30. Chris Kleiman of Kansas State is at 31. Billy Napier of Florida is at 32. And Josh Heupel of Tennessee is at 33. I ask you this. From 25 to 32, is there any coach up there that you would flip with Josh Heupel? I've got one off the top of my mind. I've got one that I'll tell you right now, and it's easy. It's Billy Napier. I think Billy Napier is going to be a fine coach. I think, Billy Napier to Florida. Florida's not going to be down for long. I like what Billy Napier did at Louisiana. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a good recruiter. I think he surrounds himself with good staff. This is not a Billy Napier love fest, but it is what it is, right? But Billy Napier's not coached a Power 5 football game yet. Okay, I've coached just as many SEC football games as Billy Napier has. Now, he knows more about football than I do, but point remains, I've seen Josh Heupel coach an SEC football schedule before. Okay, I've seen it with my own eyes. You saw it. It happened last year. Billy Napier has not done that just yet. And when you look at their group of 5, records and all that, what Billy Napier did in 4 years was incredible at Louisiana. But Josh Heupel taking over from the national championship winning Scott Frost at UCF, I say that in jest because I think it's hilarious. Danny White is now our AD here at Tennessee, but Danny White's the one that did that. I will never not make fun of that. Is what I'm trying to say. I still think that's hilarious. But again, we know Danny White now. He's a cheerleader. He's a fundraiser type guy. That's the AD that he is. But nonetheless, you take over for Scott Frost, who went undefeated in 2017, and you win double-digit games in 2019 or in 2018. You win double-digit games in 2019, and then in 2020. It was kind of a weird year. You went 6-4, and you kicked off about half your defense for player personnel issues. And of course, it was the COVID year and all that. It is what it is. But it's not like Josh Heupel was not successful at UCF as a head football coach. So I'm 100% flipping Billy Napier. Billy Napier should be at the back of the pack. We'll get to some other head coaches in their first year here in just a moment. Billy Napier should be back there because, again, he's not done it yet. Josh Heupel's done it. I can make the argument that Josh Heupel should be ahead of Chris Kleiman, but it's not the end of the world. Jeff Brom, he's been doing it for a couple years now, beat Josh Heupel. I have no issue with Jeff Brom being ranked higher. David Shaw struggled here lately, but it's once upon a time was a top 10 coach. He's at 29. Chip Kelly, I think, had a good year last year, but the rest of his UCLA tender, because he handicapped himself to a quarterback that was awful, just like Dan Mullen did with Emory Jones last year. It is what it is. Chip Kelly, that's a little bit of an overranking at 28, in my opinion. Pat Narduzzi at 27, you beat him. And then Mike Leach, I think, is one of the most overrated coaches in all the country. But I get it for him being ranked ahead of Josh Heupel. I understand it. I still think 26 is a little bit too high. So let's look at the teams behind Josh Heupel and the coaches behind Josh Heupel. Jeff Hafley at Boston College is 34. Sonny Dykes is at TCU, 35. Greg Schiano at 36 with Rutgers. Jonathan Smith, Oregon State's at 37. Brett Bielema at 38 with Illinois. Steve Sarkisian at 39 with Texas. Tom Allen, Indiana's at 40. Josh Heupel should be ranked ahead of all those guys. Shane Beamer, who I think is incredibly underranked on here, and you guys know me. I've been a big South Carolina and Shane Beamer hater here in the last year, but all they've done is prove me wrong. I don't think South Carolina will ever contend for a spot in Atlanta. I don't think South Carolina will ever win the East. But since Shane Beamer has been the head coach of South Carolina, all they've done is overachieve by 4 games, in my opinion, last year. I know that Florida was walking wounded. I know Auburn had given up, but South Carolina beat Auburn and beat Florida. Those are 2 wins that look really good on paper. He's recruited very well. He's won the transfer portal battle so far. Shane Beamer's done a nice job at South Carolina. And again, they kind of split that Steve Spurrier first-year head coaching award or whatever with Josh Heupel. I think Shane Beamer's critically underranked here at 41. He should be up there a little bit higher. Lance Leopold's at Kansas at 42. Scott Satterfield, Louisville at 43. Justin Wilcox, California is at 44. Brent Venables at 45 at Oklahoma. Josh Heupel should be ranked ahead of all those guys. Eli Drinkwitz coming in at number 46. Mike Norvell sliding to number 47. Brian Harsin sliding to number 48. Marcus Freeman at 49. Here, look, right here, first-year head coach. 49th at Notre Dame. Why is Billy Napier at 32nd? I don't get that. Mike Locksley at Maryland at 50. I'm not going to go on and read the entire list here, but I do believe Josh Heupel's position just about perfect, in my opinion, at number 33. Napier should be behind him. Kleiman would probably be behind him. But outside of that, I think that's kind of about where it should be, to be completely honest with you. A couple more highlights. Let's look at Scott Frost, who's going to be fired after this year's at 53. Dan Lanning, first-year head coach at Oregon's at 54. Billy Napier's at 32nd. Herm Edwards sliding out at 55. Dino Babers at 56. Clark Lee at 57. Quite frankly, he should probably be at 64. I just think he's an awful coach, to be completely honest with you. And I called that at SEC Media Days. I watched those guys get up there last July, last July, and they said, hey, yeah, we're excited about Clark Lee. We're excited about this new brand of Vanderbilt football. He's making us earn our numbers. We don't have a locker right now. We don't have jersey numbers. He's making us earn it. Red flag, red flag, red flag. That was the day I knew that Clark Lee as a head coach would never make it. Tony Elliott, first-year head coach at 60 with Virginia. Why is Billy Napier 32nd? I just don't get it. Mike Elko, 64 at Duke. Why is Billy Napier 32nd? Brent Pry, 65th, coming into the back of the pack for Virginia Tech, first-year head coach. Why is Billy Napier 32nd? I don't get it. There's a national media love fest of Billy Napier. And again, sign me up. I think he's a good coach, but I don't get it. I just flat out don't get it. So we'll continue on with Josh Heupel coming in at number 33 in the CBS Sports Power 5 coaches rankings entering the 2022 season. But he's at number 33, and that's the section of 26 through 65. And we'll continue on. We'll discuss SEC coaches, where they're ranked, and is it the right order, coming up next here on Locked On Vols. Our partners at BetOnline.net continue to be the number one source for all your sports betting and gambling needs and sports information. Find all the latest odds, the latest news, sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. You guys know that I love the futures a whole lot, all right? BetOnline.net is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, live betting, the playoffs, esports, reality television, a whole lot more. You can head on over to the website today or use your mobile device right here in the palm of your hand and check out all the latest trends and all the action. You guys know that on Sundays, I'm a big NASCAR guy. That's when I go to BetOnline. That's when I go online at betonline.net and I place my bets for the days. And I usually come out on top because there's so much strategy, just like in NASCAR, to betting NASCAR as well. BetOnline.net. Go ahead and give it a try. It's where the game starts. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Make sure to go check out the Locked On NBA Big Board. You got a panel of hosts that do a whole lot of great stuff. They're giving you a deep look into the NBA draft, the mock draft, the player rankings, and, of course, the big boards. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. That is the Locked On NBA Big Board, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, so taking a look at Power 5 coaches rankings, 1 through 65, with CBSSports.com. Josh Heupel coming in at number 33, and I believe that is just about right for right now. Let's take a look at the top 25 and then the SEC coaches. No surprise, Nick Saban of Alabama is up at number 1. Kirby Smart, Georgia, national champion now, is at number 2. Dabo's at number 3 with Clemson. Lincoln Riley at USC is at number 4. Jimbo Fisher is at number 5. Ryan Day is at number 6. Those top 6 have been in some shape or order about the same top 6 for the last 4 years or so. Brian Kelly's there at number 7 at LSU. Kyle Whittingham, number 8 of Utah. Jim Harbaugh, number 9 at Michigan. This past year really helped him a college football playoff for sure. Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State, coming in the top 10. Dave Aranda, Baylor at 11. Matt Campbell, Iowa State at 12. A little overrated in my opinion. Kirk Ferentz, Iowa, is number 13. Paul Chryst, Wisconsin's number 14. James Franklin, talk about overrated, is at 15th. Mark Stoops of Kentucky is at 16th. Dave Clawson at Wake Forest is 17th. Lane Kiffin, 18th at Ole Miss. Mario Cristobal, 19th at Miami. Mac Brown, the living legend, at number 20 for Carolina. Pat Fitzgerald at number 21 for Northwestern. Well overrated. Sam Pittman at Arkansas is at 22. PJ Fleck at Minnesota is 23. Mel Tucker, Michigan State's 24. And then Dave Doran, 25 at NC State. Here's how the top here's how the SEC coaches look in their respected rankings, okay? So you got Nick Saban at number 1. You got Kirby Smart at number 2. Jimbo Fisher at number 5. Brian Kelly at number 7. Mark Stoops at 16. Lane Kiffin at 18. Sam Pittman at 22. Mike Leach at 26. Billy Napier at 32. And Josh Heupel at 33. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. CBSSports.com is saying Josh Heupel is the 10th best head coach in the SEC entering the 2022 season. 10 out of 14. Okay. Shane Beamer is at 41 behind Hypel. Eli Drinkwitz is at 46, Brian Harson's at 48, and Clark Lee is at 57. So I think it's safe to say you would take Josh Heupel over Shane Beamer, Eli Drinkwitz, Brian Harsin, and Clark Lee. I think Eli Drinkwitz is a decent coach. I think he's annoying. I think his little charade of trying to be the jokester in the SEC is getting really, really old. But I do think that he's a good X's and O's coach. But I would still take Hypel over him. I would put Hypel above Billy Napier right now for reasons I explained in segment one. Mike Leach, I think, is incredibly overrated. He's had a handful of decent seasons at tough places. I get that. But you look at the rest of his coaching record and you talk about compiler. I mean, 7 wins, 8 wins, 7 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins. And there's something to be said for that. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like this guy wins double-digit win seasons every single year. He won 7 games last year with Mississippi State. He will never sniff fourth place in the SEC West. He just won't. Not with Kelly there, not with Saban, not with Jimbo, not with Lane, not with Pitman. I mean, let's be frank here. He won't sniff fourth place over there in the SEC West ever, in my opinion. Would you take Josh Heupel over Sam Pittman? Well, right now it's kind of hard to argue, right? I mean, it's two different styles, if you will, but it's kind of hard to argue. Sam Pittman's had a really nice little run here the last 2 years. He went 3-7 that COVID year, but he should have had 5 wins that year. And he had a pretty decent year this last year. Made it all the way to the top 10. Would you take Josh Heupel over Lane Kiffin? Lane Kiffin has more experience as a head coach. He's been a more distinct play caller for some better teams. He had a really good year last year. Would you take Mark Stoops over Josh Heupel? Mark Stoops, I'm fine with the 16th ranking in the country because you guys know me. I'm a big Mark Stoops believer. What he's done at Kentucky is incredible. He's the second longest tenured SEC head coach behind Nick Saban. I mean, he never has a good quarterback. He builds his offenses around good offensive line play and a good running back. He's a good defensive coach, right? Always has edge rushers, always finds and develops edge rushers, good linebacker play. And for them to win 8-9 games at Kentucky consistently here lately, hats off to Mark Stoops. Heck of a job. But I would still probably take Josh Heupel over Mark Stoops, right? Or am I wrong here? I don't know. I have a ton of respect for Mark Stoops. Maybe in a year or two, I'll take Heupel over him. But in terms of where the game is going, you want Josh Heupel over Mark Stoops. That's an interesting conversation. You know, Brian Kelly, horrible human being. Horrible human being, but he's a good coach. So you take him over Hype, you take Fisher over Hype, you take Smart over Hype, you take Saban over Hype. Okay, so I'm just trying to play the who would you rather have game, or is this worth it? I don't think Josh Heupel should be ranked 10th in the SEC, but maybe 9th, maybe 8th. You can make the argument for 7th, but he's middle of the pack. He's middle of the pack in terms of being the best head coach in the SEC, in my opinion. He just has 4 years of head coaching experience now and 1 year in the SEC. I'm giving Billy Napier all this crap about never coaching in the SEC. I mean, Heupel's only done it 1 year, and it looked good for year number 1. You got to take a step. You got to have your defense come around and create some depth. I understand all that. So it's just kind of interesting to look about kind of how that kind of falls out here whenever you say, where are the coaches ranked here in CBS Sports Power 5 coaches rankings per the SEC. Let's look at the schedule, shall we? These are head coaches and their rankings at Tennessee that are on Tennessee's schedule this year. Pat Narduzzi at 27, Billy Napier at 32, Brian Kelly at 7, Nick Saban at 1, Mark Stoops at 16, Kirby Smart at 2nd, Eli Drinkwitz at 46th, Shane Beamer at 41, Clark Lee at 57. Tennessee will play, according to CBS Sports, the CBS Sports ranking list, Tennessee will play 3 of the top 10 coaches in the country, play 4 of the top 20 coaches in the country. That one added on there was Mark Stoops with his 16th ranking. Now, where this favors Tennessee a little bit is you will play Pat Narduzzi, who's 27th, did beat Tennessee last year. You will play Billy Napier, who's a first-year head coach at a new institution, who's ranked 32nd. You will play Shane Beamer, who's right now, let's be honest, he's on the same playing field as, I know Tennessee beat the crap out of South Carolina, but in terms of what you've accomplished in your tenures, Josh Heupel and Shane Beamer are right head-to-head. Shane Beamer's even got more impressive wins, in my opinion. So it just is what it is, right? I mean, that'll change. That should change. But for right now, it is what it is. If Tennessee were to play Florida and Auburn at the end of the season last year, I have no ifs, ands, buts about it. Tennessee would have beat Florida and Auburn as well. But that's not the way the cookie crumbled. It just didn't. You got Eli Drinkwitz at 46, Shane Beamer at 41, and Clark Lee at 57. So, those are some coaches that are well down the rankings. It's not like you're playing like last year's schedule. With Lane on there, that's a top 20 coach. Of course, Saban's on there. You got some of these other guys who were ranked higher than last year who have slid down some. So That's what it looks like for Tennessee in terms of the coaches on the schedule right now. And in case you're wondering, Texas and Oklahoma is coming over in 2024, 2025, one of those years, I think it's 25. Steve Sarkisian, who will probably not be there when they come to the SEC, is 39th, and Brent Venables is 45th. So just kind of a way to look at it there in terms of where some other coaches are ranked around the SEC and where Tennessee stacks up with some of those names. I still just can't get over Billy Napier being ranked ahead of Josh Heupel at 32nd. And quite frankly, Shane Beamer should be ranked well ahead at 41st, where he is right now at 41st. The rest of the top 10, I mean, again, I mentioned the top 6, 7 are pretty predictable. Saban, Smart, Sweeney, Riley, Fisher, Day, and Kelly, 1 through 7, respectively. Whittingham at Utah is at 8. Jim Harbaugh, prior to last year, if he had a top 10 ranking, I'd say that's well overrated, but he's earned that now. Mike Gundy, they never compete for a college football playoff, really. But, I mean, they're in the running, but they're never serious candidates, right? But all he does is compile double-digit win seasons at Oklahoma State. Dave Aranda is a good coach at 11th. Campbell, I thought, is overrated. Ferentz, tough job, 13th at Iowa. Paul Chryst, Wisconsin. James Franklin, 15th. Dave Clawson probably shouldn't be in the top 20, but he had a really good year last year. Mario Cristobal, 19th. What he did at Oregon. Now let's see what he does at Miami. Mac Brown deserves to be a top 20 coach. Sam Pittman's probably about right in the top 20 of the 20 through 25 at 22nd. PJ Fleck, severely overrated. He's at 23rd. Mel Tucker had a really, really good year a couple years ago. He's at 24th. Dave Doran might be one of the most overrated coaches there. But again, it's kind of hard to argue on a Tennessee behalf because it's only been 1 year of Josh Heupel. So we continue on with the CBS Power 5 coaches rankings entering the 2022 season. A couple more notes on that when we come back. Josh Heupel, number 33, too high, too low, or just about right? I think for now, it's just about right. Built Bar. I love brownies, but you know what I love more? Brownie batter. Sometimes I'd have the batter just while I'm making the brownie. Let's be real. I'm reading copy points. I don't make brownies, okay? But I do like the cookie dough back when you're little and mom's making cookies or brownies, so I can relate, all right? Imagine if you could lick that brownie spatula clean and get some protein from it. Wow, you're in heaven, right? You're in luck because Built has new creation, and this one is better than ever. The Brownie Batter Puff. You heard me right. The Puff takes protein bars to a whole new level, and they're available right now at Built.com. Have you tried the Built Bar Puffs yet? Guys, I've been harping on for months. I'm not sure what you're waiting for if you haven't. Puffs are chocolate-covered marshmallow protein bars. That's right, delicious flavors. Marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate, only 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, 7 grams of sugar. Brownie Batter Puffs are the perfect pick-me-up on any day. All Built Bar Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with a Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy it each and every outing. These Brownie Batter Puffs will have you completely forgetting that you're eating a protein bar. No need to pinch yourself. This is real life, guys. Go to Built.com and check out those Brownie Batter Puffs right now. Built.com. Use that promo code LOCK15, and you're going to get 15% off your order. Built Bar just sent me some birthday cake flavored puffs, and I got to tell you, they're good. You can try those out at Built.com as well. Lock15 for 15% off. That's all at Built.com. All right, boys and girls, we got another segment left here on this Thursday edition of Locked On Vols. Hey, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm working on an interview that you guys will love. Hopefully it will come at some point next week, but I promise you if it works out, you guys will like it. Plus, we're gonna do a Nico Iamaleava plus Arch Manning episode at some point. You talk about this SEO through the roof on YouTube, am I right? But comparing those two quarterbacks and which quarterback will have the better career, that's coming up at some point on Locked On Vols. But we're continuing on. A couple more notes, really just one more notes topic on the CBSSports.com Power 5 coaches rankings. Josh Heupel, number 33. Again, I will link this in the bio of the episode if you want to check it out for yourself. And big thanks to CBSSports.com for coming to play with some off-season content here. Coaches set for the biggest leap following this year. It's easy to say. Typically, if you're first-year head coach, you're going to be at the back of the pack in these type of rankings. Josh Heupel, I believe, was like 51st last year. You play the game, you move up, and all that. Oh, I didn't even read what they said about Josh Heupel. Excuse me. That's being really bad at my job. Tom Fornelli writes on Josh Heupel. Okay. And it looks like I have the same thing pulled up here. So excuse me. Tony Fornelli writes on Josh Heupel. As I continue to scroll here. Excuse me. Here we go. on Josh Heupel's 33rd ranking here. This has nothing to do with Hypel specifically, but I smell some SEC bias here. Interesting. Yes, Hypel exceeded expectations at Tennessee in his first year, putting together a fun offense and leading the team to a 7-6 mark in the Music City Bowl. However, if he'd done the same thing at a program in another Power 5 conference, would it warrant a 19-spot climb? I'm skeptical. All that aside, he's the first Tennessee coach to finish his first season in Knoxville with a winning record since Lane Kiffin. Simply sticking around for the second season puts him ahead of schedule from that perspective. Again, he was ranked 52nd last year in the same ranking system, plus 19 up to number 33. And keep in mind, too, though, think of everything Josh Heupel had to deal with in year number one, okay? You had, as I turn my volume up here, you had 30 some odd players into the transfer portal. So many of those, all four of your linebackers into the transfer portal, tailback into the transfer portal. I mean, big, impactful players. Your best players left the program. Your coach got fired. Your program's under investigation. Josh Heupel comes in here and leads them to a winning record. I mean, again, that in itself is something that should speak volumes. But last thing here, first-year head coaches who are set to make big jumps in the rankings, just like Josh Heupel did last year. This time next year, Tony Elliott at Virginia, 60. Tony Elliott even turned down the Tennessee job because it was so much of a crap show. Remember that, guys. People like Tony Elliott, who's fine. We'll see how he does at Virginia. He was the offensive coordinator at Clemson for a long time. Turned down the Tennessee job because it was so much of a crap storm. Remember that. Tony Elliott, 60. Dan Lanning, 54th. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, well, he's positioned to be really good because it's Notre Dame, right? 49th. Brent Venables at 45. Those are some of the first-year head coaches that are back of the pack now that I see can move up and make big leaps if they have winning records in year number two, just like Josh Heupel did in this system. So CBSSports.com, really, really good, fun topics to discuss. Josh Heupel, 33. Is that too high, too low, or just about right? You tell me at _Kane or at Locked On Vols, and of course, right here in the comments section on YouTube. All right, guys, one last thing as we close up shop here on a Thursday. Our guy Ross Jackson, who's a frequent listener to the podcast, takes part in Twitter Tuesday a lot of times. He dove in the DMs, and this was earlier this week. This is from my guy Ross. So Tennessee opting out of playing BYU and opting out of playing Army. Is there any risk of taking a reputation hit with finding partners for home and homes? That's a fair question. That is a fair question from Ross. Tennessee is technically opting out of the BYU game. I had some BYU fans jump in the comments on YouTube trying to, say that it wasn't like they were trying to dodge Tennessee game. Let's call it what it is. BYU didn't want to play Tennessee. And let's reciprocate here. It's of my opinion, Tennessee didn't want to play BYU. Tennessee's going to make a heck of a lot more money by playing in Nashville. Tennessee is not going to have to pay for all that jet fuel. If that's the argument I'm making here, why they don't want to pay BYU jet fuel, then why ever go on another trip, right? So again, I'm not trying to overemphasize that. But the fact of the matter is that game would probably have been moved. You got your starting quarterback who will likely be a true freshman and or a new starting quarterback, new offensive line. You want your first game to be in Provo? I don't think so. So again, I don't think BYU wanted to play Tennessee, and I don't believe Tennessee wanted to play BYU. Not like anybody was scared of anybody. I just don't think that these programs wanted to play each other. So that is kind of what it is. Now, Tennessee already had the first leg of the home and home back in 2019. All right. So the top of ticket sales, it has to go in order to not play this game. It has to go to BYU for this game. But Tennessee's going to make $1.5 million. Virginia's going to make $1.5 million. Tennessee doesn't have to pay for an opponent. You're swapping BYU for a Power 5 opponent. It doesn't get anything. It's not sexy. I hear you. But I mean, that's what's happening here. So again, I'm disappointed. I'm not going to get to cover the game. That's selfish of me. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a wash, in my opinion, because it's like, all right, BYU, Virginia, playing in Nashville, it is what it is. Maybe Tennessee can riddle some of those Nashville woes here with a better playing surface. So the getting out of the BYU deal, I think it was more about logistics than anything. I don't think it was Tennessee scared or BYU scared or is what it is. I think it was more logistics than anything. All right, let's talk about Army. And again, Ross brings up some good points because this is the second time it's happened in last year. Tennessee canceling a game and picking up another game. Army, Navy, Service Academies, Air Force play a unique brand of football. Typically, they do not have the hosses to compete with the likes of the Power Fives. They're going on a better mission to defend our country, and we all should be thankful and pray for our soldiers each and every day. It allows us to talk in front of a camera about sports. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, right? They're typically smaller. They don't compare measurables for the most part across the board with that of Power 5. So they have to play a unique brand of football, and that's option offenses for the most part, okay? When you are a Power 5 football team, you never want to schedule an option-based offense. You never wanted to play Georgia Tech a couple of years ago, okay? Why? Because you're taking time mid-season or beginning of the season trying to work and prepare to defend an option offense when you're never going to see it again, ever. Never, ever, ever. At Division II, hashtag Uncle Rico, allow it. Four games on the 12-game schedule for us were against option offenses. When you got in the playoffs, even we were an option offense at Carson Newman. You see that more at lower levels because, again, you're smaller, not as big, and you quicker. You can get away with it, or quick. Not, I wouldn't say quicker, but we saw it pretty routinely, and so we practice against it every day. So it was one thing, but even like when we had LR week 7, I mean, you had to take the whole week and practice against a triple option offense to where your outside linebackers come up and stand in the 2-point stance on the end of the line of scrimmage to take quarterback. Your middle linebacker, which is what I was, you step back 3 or 4 yards and you play the dive quarterback pitch, just run the alley. You got your safeties coming up in the box. It's different compared to what you do the next week, which is a spread offense. You have to spread everybody out, right? So you don't you have so much to lose playing an option offense via a service academy, in my opinion. Now this is all from a football perspective, all right? And Philip Fulmer, I believe, and Jeremy Pruitt are the ones that put this on the table, Tennessee playing Army. Danny White comes in, Josh Heupel comes in. They had nothing to do with it. Heupel's probably like, hey, I don't want to play this game. It benefits me in no way to play this game. And I agree with him if that was his mindset. He was never quoted saying that, but I guarantee you that's what he thought. So Tennessee getting out of the Army game makes complete sense to me. And I know there were a lot of people that were upset about it. I get all that, but makes complete sense to me. Now, sometimes you just got to, do what, I'm not going to say do the right thing, but just stay true to the thing. Just stay true to the contract. Allow them to come here and play in this Power 5. But they'll have other games like that to showcase. It just, from a football perspective, is all I'm trying to speak of right now. It made no sense. So to answer your question, Ross, that's a fair question. It really, really is, man. And I completely agree in terms of asking it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think pretty much every football mind across the country understands why Tennessee got out of the Army game. And I just think logistically it makes so much sense to get out of the BYU game. Still, I wish they were playing it because I want to go cover it. And, Tennessee would probably win that game, but, likely, we'll see. But, of course, all the turnovers. So, good question, fair question. I wrote back. I said that I hit it more on the podcast because we got a little bit more to it. But that's some good stuff there. So, that's going to do it here for this episode of Locked On Vols. We went over the tree model for the CBS Sports Power 5 coaches rankings. We hit it from just about every single angle. Fun times. Put in the comment section. Throw me a like. Throw me a heart. Little thumbs up if you liked it. Hey, appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you're on Apple, if you're on Spotify, whatever platform, please rate 5 stars. I need those positive comments. Got some crappy ones on there right now. And we need to put those down there right now. So leave me a comment if you enjoy the show, if you're a fan of the show. But most importantly, rate it 5 stars. Anything to help the algorithms, guys. That would be awesome. But most importantly, thank you so much. We'll never go unnoticed that you take time out of your day to hang out with us here on Locked On Vols. Coming at you tomorrow. Big show to end the week of Friday, Locked On Vols. Thanks so much for making this your first listen. Check out Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy right now as we send you on to your Thursday. Guys and gals, thank you so much. We'll do it again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.